Flight attendants, what are some things we as passengers don't know when we fly? Also, what are the negative aspects of your job? When I was 16 I moved from the US to Germany as an exchange student. I was alone, had never flown by myself, and didn't speak German. From Frankfurt to Bremen I got ridiculously sick. I think it was a mix of altitude sickness and anxiety. I was so embarrassed and upset and I hadn't slept in 24 hours. The flight attendants let me move to a seat closer to the bathroom and kept checking in on me every 10 minutes with cold paper towels, water, and Sprite. They also kept me up to date with how much longer until we landed, etc. Anyway, I was very scared and very lonely and just wanted my mom. I'm so thankful for the kindness everyone showed me. Top things I get asked. 1. What's your route? It's rare that a flight attendant does the same thing over and over again. In some cases, very senior flight attendants will be see they can hold the best trips. Like Nick Lax turns giving them 12 hours pay for one day. Most of us fly a variety of things, and we all like different stuff. I prefer turns that get me home every night by 3 PM. Some people like 3 days that have fun layovers. So many options. 2. How long do you get to stay on the layover? Anywhere from 9 hours to 50. There's are times where we land at a place at 10 PM and have to be up for the first flight in the morning. On the flip side, sometimes we get to be in a place for an entire day or even longer for some overseas, and everything in between. My sweet spot is 13 hours BC. It's long enough to get decent rest but not too long that I'm away from home unnecessarily. 3. Do I fly for free? Domestically yes. Internationally you pay taxes in the flight home. This is all standby and you never know if there will be a seat or not. I've been stuck places many times. Looking at you Athens. The lack of stability in my schedule is a huge thing that people don't really know about. I find out where I'm going for the month on the 21st of the month before. Unless I have my book leave there I have no idea what my days off will be. In January I turned up to work for a Nairobi trip and got reassigned to a Chicago 20 minutes before I was due for my briefing. Arrived in all dressed for the African summer. As for things you don't know, almost always we pick our BFF or boyfriend for the flight who is simply the most attractive guy on the flight just for a bit of fun. We also discuss amongst us how nice outsiders. On wide-body aircraft there's 2 aisles and we work each side. Once we've done the initial drinks round we often have a casual chat over what they're like. My side is pretty nice. They're drinking a lot of alcohol though. 30-40 is a dong but there's a family of 4 at the front who are lovely. If you drink too much and we cut you off when you ask for your 4th double vodka tonic in an hour, don't try and pull the wool over our eyes and ask someone else. We know about you. The unboat manager will know about you and the captain will know about you. As soon as I cut someone off I'll let the crew working with me know that I've stopped giving 28B alcohol. When the manager calls us, every half an hour at my airline, we let them know that 28B has been cut off, and in turn they'll let the captain know. It's nothing major but I don't think a lot of people realize how much we keep the flight deck in the loop on everything that's going on. People in business and first class don't realize they're cracking off their warm smelling bed farts all the time when they're trying to sleep and it's disgusting. And yes, we know when you're getting handsy with each other. Most airlines I've worked with have a monthly minimum, meaning I get paid for 75 hours a month regardless of if I'm actually flying that amount. That's only if you're a reserve, on call, though. Otherwise you get paid for what you fly. My airline has a guarantee of 90 for reserves, but line holders only get paid for what they work. A few years back, I was flying home from college on vacation freshman year. I had fallen asleep before the flight attendant came around handing out packs of peanuts, and woke to find a few packs in my hand. No one was sitting around me. To the flight attendant who put peanuts in my hand while I was asleep, I salute you. 07. 1. Hairspray can set off the lavatory smoke alarms. Also, yes, your vape. 2. Whenever I take a flight as a passenger out of uniform, I always greet the flight attendants in the front and usually the pilots, and let them know I'm a flight attendant. It's not industry standard, but the idea is to let them know where my seat is in case there's an emergency and I'm an extra set of helpful hands. 3 junior flight attendants are exhausted, zombies walking around, facing minor hypoxia, sleep deprivation, negative bank accounts, and general anxiety. That was me during our airline's required reserve period. It's comparable to new RNs and doctors who are on call. You can be on call for 24 hours, which means at any point you have 2 hours to be at the airport, in uniform, ready to fly any flight they assign you. Once you finish that assignment, which can be anywhere from 2 hours to 4 days, you have 9 hours of rest before you go back on call. 3. Every flight attendant has a base, but not every airport is a base. Many flight attendants are therefore commuters. For example, you can live in Ohio but you're a new hire who was assigned SFO as your base. You can move to the most expensive city in the country, or commute before your assignments from the Midwest to SFO every time. Many flight attendants and pilots mitigate this logistic by staying in crash pads a few nights a month. Apartments under one name on the lease but with bunk beds and shared spaces and divided rent. 5. Salary and union representation are interesting topics as well. Some great comments already in this thread about that. 6. Most of us love our jobs. I was on a flight where a woman vaped, so they took away her vape. She had a second one, apparently, and they took that one too. She was met by police at arrival. Where are we flying over right now? We never know. Also, to open a B-fold lavatory door, simply push in the middle, where it says push. One of the negative aspects of the job is when people yank off the ashtray thinking it's a door handle and then ask why do you even have those still. It's an FAA requirement. Ashtrays need to be on every plane in case someone decides to frick the rules and light up. Unless you're extremely lucky and your aircraft just rolled out of the hangar after major maintenance, there will absolutely be something broken in it. An aircraft can have a whole host of parts be broken and still be allowed to fly. The broken parts just get labeled, recorded, and put on the to-do list for the next time it goes to maintenance. If it's leaking oil, that means it still has oil. The worst part for me is not being able to have a schedule. I can't reliably eat, work out, or sleep work with any consistency. It's also pretty tough being away from home so often if you have anyone at home you want to see. Leaving my husband and dog alone all the time is tough for both me and him. Wasn't there a study that observed a higher heart attack and cardiovascular problems in flight attendants? I heard on NPR that it's because of inconsistent sleep patterns since they're going between time zones a lot of the time. I just want to shout out the entire FA crew on an American Airlines flight from Nick, LDN back in May. I came down with a violent bout of the stomach flu about 45 minutes into the flight, puking every 20-ish minutes. Thankfully I had an unobstructed path to the bathroom, but on the occasion I didn't make it, some kind soul gave me one of the huge bags to puke in and let me hide in the galley. They said they couldn't get me a blanket from the other classes, but one FA lent me his personal travel duvet. Another one make sure I was stocked with water and a water-odge mix at all times and always had napkins and extra bags. In return I tried to keep it very quiet that I was sick, didn't want to panic any passenger or cause a ruckus, and hand sanitized everything I could. I felt like I was trapped in an actual living nightmare, but the genuine kindness and selflessness of some of those FAs made me want to cry. I've flown a whole lot throughout my life and there are some real buttholes out there. Thankfully they are outnumbered by the generous, lovely, and kind people. Pretty much what happens at a lot of jobs. If you ask for something nicely, I'll usually give it to you. But if you demand it or if you're a jerk, good luck getting anything free. I've heard that flight attendants are mainly there in case crap hits the fan on a flight's emergency landing, mechanical failure, etc. And that the hospitality part of the job is more or less filler for that primary role. How true is that? Obviously you guys know all the general safety stuff like how to exit the plane in an emergency, but how trained, if at all, are flight attendants in things like crisis management? 98% of our training is for the 0.1% of our job that we hope to never use. I went to training for 6 weeks, and we spent 3 days on service. We're trained to fight fires, treat medical emergencies, evacuate a plane in record time, and much more. Service is still a very important part of the job, as that's what we do 99.9% of the time, but the majority of training goes into emergency situations. I was a flight attendant for 10 years, only left after the birth of my second child. I can go on and on about so much from my flying days. But I am glad now that I left and don't miss it anymore. I was always away and was always so jet lagged or tired when at home. As you're boarding the aircraft we are judging you. We need to be able to establish what kind of flight we are gonna have. If you're nice we will try anything we can do to help you. But if you're a jerk we will just ignore you and talk behind your back in the galley. If we are asking you to follow rules, it's nothing personal, that's literally our job, and please don't ask where are we flying at the moment. I don't know or don't care either. Nowadays we have lots of gluten-free, vegan and vegetarian passengers on board. You need to make sure that you specify your meal when making the booking to avoid disappointment. Once I had a family of 6 people from La who were all gluten-free and were very surprised that we do not carry GF meal. I was able to get some fruits and salads without dressing from business class to keep them happy, as they were very nice about it. Question: can you tell that I'm on Xanax, and how relieved are you when you see the whole row knocked out? Best passengers but frowned upon for security reasons. If it was up to me, I'd sedate the whole plane and wake people up before landing. Would make everyone trip much smoother. Don't stand up while we taxi. Imagine you are in a 50-ton car with jets strapped to the doors. Wear a dang seatbelt until the seatbelt signs are off. Fun fact: a plane can still crash on the ground. Please wear a seatbelt. I always like the little known fact that the reason for turning the cabin lights off at night, just before landing, is to allow enough time for the eyes to adjust to night vision. So in case of a crash you're already adjusted for the darkness to make it easier to see in the dark and find your way out of the aircraft and away from it and the darkness outside. You'll be thinking about this on your next night flight, guaranteed. If it's a red eye and we are close to landing, I might be hallucinating from lack of sleep. Not enough to be dangerous, just enough to see weird things. Oh, and when you ask us to change the temperature we pretend to do it. Planes are generally colder because if we hit turbulence, warm temps will make the chances of someone puking much higher. No idea why. If you curse in general it's normally not a thing, but the second you curse at me I can kick you off. We have flex restraints and are trained how to use them should you get disorderly. I'm definitely not disrespectful, so I am asking out of curiosity. How would you kick someone off, lol? I used to be a recruiter for a pretty popular airline. I would interview people specifically for flight attendant. The main thing about it is the sheer amount of people that would apply for the job. 300,000 plus applications, but the actual amount of people who really wanted the job after I told them everything involved was staggering. 98% of the time I wouldn't even have to deny them the job. After telling them everything involved with it, they would usually just back out of the hiring process. It's a pretty crazy job and I have a huge appreciation for the people that stay in the job for 10 plus years and can do it well. My wife is a former flight attendant, so I'll offer a few things she's told me. When everyone stands near the gate, waiting for their boarding group to call, you prevent other passengers from getting on board. Gate agents and flight attendants affectionately refer to this cloud as gate lice. Flight attendants have a level of authority on the flight that's below the captain, but they can, and do, make the call about whether you will fly or not. If you're too drunk, if you're belligerent, and if you give them the impression you will not follow their instructions on a flight, the FARs can kick you off. If you refuse to go, they can have you arrested. Likewise, in flight, they can have you detained and arrested at the destination. Flight attendants' primary purpose is safety, not serving you food and drinks. That's just something extra to help justify their presence on board and add some comfort to the flight. So please don't mistake them as mall security, like they have zero authority and are just a sky waiter waitress. If you knew how little money they made, you'd rethink how you treated FARs, and if you'd like to do that as a career, the hourly wage may seem nice, but they only get paid when the boarding door is closed. Otherwise, sitting at the airport waiting for a delayed flight, riding a shuttle to the hotel or riding back for the next flight doesn't pay the hourly rate. When you add up all the time you're essentially away from home or not in a hotel room, the hourly wage drops to below minimum wage. Some airlines give better pay based on seniority, but most airlines do not. The only real perks are flight benefits. FA and spouse other gets flight benefits, meaning they can fly anywhere for just the government fee as glorified standby. The gate lice phenomenon is interesting. I usually hang back and watch. Most people will too, but if one person starts to push forward, everyone will get anxiety and start pushing closer and closer. The chimes and dings you hear on the speaker all have a very specific meaning. A single high chime is a passenger call button going off. High then low chime is a call on the interphone from another crew member, and a double low chime indicates the plane is above below 10,000 feet. Indicators for final descent for landings, aka strap in and clean up. Some negative aspects, depending on the type of person you are. The loneliness. It has never particularly bothered me. I've always enjoyed the solace and I don't mind going around the city on my own. But right now for the first time in years, it's getting to me. I'm going through a breakup as of today while I'm in the middle of a trip and it's so hard to try to keep yourself composed on hours long flights whilst locking yourself in and out of the bathroom to wipe your tears up and make yourself look presentable and keep a smile. It's worse when you get to the hotel room at the end of the day and you're alone, thousands of miles away from any friends or family, and you cry into your pillow aching to hug the person who's leaving you. I want to be home. Pilot here. Don't drink the coffee. The water comes from the unbowed system that has the fill port right next to the port the lavatories are drained from. The water system routinely fails E. coli checks. Also, when you wash your hands using the same water, make sure you always use the soap. Lastly, don't put your food directly on the tray tables. I had a KLM flight recently and received a satisfaction survey afterwards. They had 2 questions especially for coffee while the rest of them were just about drinks in general. Now I know why. That tape you see on a plane, it's not duct tape, it's speed tape. It's not used for critical repairs. It's usually a cosmetic or minor aerodynamic fix. Example, the windshield of a plane is sandwiched between the airframe and the outer plates, but the step between the outer plate to the windshield has a seal placed for cosmetic and aerodynamic purposes. Eventually it needs replaced, so they put speed tape over it until it's time for the plane to go to scheduled maintenance. Hooking a plane up to a pushback and moving it to the maintenance hangar is a long process. They're not going to do that for every minor repair. TL. Doctor tape on a plane is nothing to worry about. Not a flight attendant but have a question. Is it true you guys do not get paid outside the time the plane is in flight? All the prep, check-in and clean up afterwards is off the clock. True. Pretty much every airline, at least in the US, starts paying once the door is closed and stops when the door is open. We don't like delays any more than you do. Not cabin crew, but my GF is. She told me they're not allowed to donate organs. Due to them flying so much, the constant change in air pressure affects their organs too much. Also, they are more radioactive than we are. Not necessarily more radioactive, but they do get higher doses of cosmic radiation due to them being higher up and having less atmosphere to block that cosmic radiation. Although, they might technically be more radioactive if they are exposed to more cosmic neutrons, but the difference would hardly be noticeable. My wife was a flight attendant. The worst part was always being on call, so she could never truly relax when she was home. Sometimes she would get a call at 4 AM to be at the airport in 2 hours. We live an hour away, so she would have to get ready ASAP. She would get sick all the time from being around traveling homebodies. Have to deal with people who thought they deserved special treatment and angry people that had a delayed missed flight when they have no control over those things. No, they can't help you find a connecting flight. Delay the plane because you're late and are not responsible for maintaining the lavatory. At the end of the day, they're not maids and shouldn't be treated as such. They're there to keep you safe and maintain order on the plane. All of that for $18 per flight hour. And most of her flights were only 1/2 hours. So for not flying, she was only getting paid $1.65 an hour until the plane's door closed. And if she was at home, they wouldn't pay her as it wasn't considered travel. She probably has an immune system of steel now though, lol. Safety, security and lastly service. Those are the 3 things we are here for and they're prioritized in that very order. I love my job as a FA. I've been doing it for over 7 years and there's so much flexibility with the job that you can't compare to any other career. I could work as little or as much as I'd like to, and for the most part I could choose the routes that I fly. Passengers could sometimes be difficult, but the best part about this job is I'll probably never see that passenger ever again after that one flight. And once I walk off the airplane and head home, I've left my work behind me and don't have to think about it again until my next trip. That being said, the negative aspect of my job has to be the long hours and sometimes very early showtimes. A lot of my friends think the job is glamorous and a vacation all the time, but you don't really wake up at 3 AM every day when you go on vacation. Oh yeah, and the absolute worst thing is pouring Diet Coke on the airplane because it fizzes much longer than any other carbonated drink for some weird reason. Oh, my job shows up on Reddit. Let's do this. Long-range aircrafts have a room with many beds where the crew sleeps for some time. For some of us is pretty obvious, but I found many people that didn't know about that. Toilets are unlocked from outside by lifting the metal lid and moving the locker. Most of the times, on big airlines, crew don't know at all between each other. 90% of cases they just met an hour before the flight. We don't spend weeks flying around jumping from a city to another. Usually there is a base where you jump from onto it, with some layovers each month. This varies a lot from one airline to another since they have different targets to cover. There is an axe in the cockpit. Our main job is to ensure safety and security during the flight. Serving food drinks is a complimentary thing. Turbulence can be some serious crap and, if unlucky, they can ruin your life. Putting the seatbelt takes 3 seconds and is not even tight. We can't donate blood or organs due to being an aircrew. Apparently blood cells grow abnormally due to different air pressure and is not safe for donation. I think this is not worldwide but in the EU. Over several years flying, you are restricted to do so. Despite being surrounded by people all day, is many times a very lonely job. Not a flight attendant, but used to clean planes. The biggest thing I think passengers don't know, the plane is not a nail salon, no fingernail or toenail clipping. It's disgusting. You have been visited by the doggo beer master. Comment delicious so you always have beer in your life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.